What I wanted to do, since we do have some, a little bit of variability in people's familiarity with the different LLMs, is I wanted to go over just some of the basic features, especially because there are some things in Claude, especially that I found that with the prompts that we're going to talk about, that did appear differently than when I tested the prompts in ChatGPT versus Perplexity versus Gemini. So you might see some variation if you use these prompts, depending on which AI you're using, whether or not you have the free plan with ChatGPT or a paid plan with something else, and literally just what kind of background information your AI already knows about you, if you have your memory turned on or if you have artifacts turned on and things like that. So I'm going to click over to ChatGPT. And I'm in my school. I'm logged in under my school account, and you can see this is what it looks like. I've got a lot of past history with it, so it knows a little bit about me. It's Chat 4.0 over here, and you can see that it's got a lot of background information. I've got the ability to search. I've got some access to deep research. So when you are asking things in your AI, if you're using ChatGPT, just make a note of what you have access to. Now, if I look over here on my personal side, right? And on my personal side, I actually pay $20 a month for ChatGPT on my personal side. And I've got ChatGPT Plus, and over here I have some access to additional things under settings. So I can give it some background information about myself, to always do certain things under my settings, and so you can turn certain things on and off in your personal, because you have control over your personal account. The next one I want to just point out really, really quickly for you guys is if we go over to Claude, and this is where I saw the biggest difference when I used some of the prompts I'm going to show you in a minute, and I would like us all to kind of use these in real time, is with when I signed into Claude. So again, I'm over here on my Catawba Schools account, and I'm going to sign in with Google and get signed in, and I'll have a little bit of a history. So you'll see I've got some previous chats that'll show up over here. But one of the things that I want to make sure that you notice is when you click on settings in Claude, there's a button that you can see where you can turn on and make sure that you have your artifacts turned on. When I was doing one of the prompts, the first prompt that we're going to do, and then the second one for designing, Claude opened up a window that showed me the lesson plan that it created, but then it also showed me some artifacts. And if you don't have that turned on, you're not going to be able to see the artifacts. So before we go to Gemini, which I think is next, does anybody have any questions about, if you're a Claude user, about how to find that artifact lever?
Where was it located? Was it under settings?
Yep, so way down here in the lower left-hand corner, if you click on in my case, there's just a little teeny tiny S, and then click settings, and then profile, and I had to scroll down a little bit, and it says Claude capabilities artifacts, and you can toggle that on and off. Okay. There you go. All right, now the next one, Perplexity. Love Perplexity. And again, when you're logged in, right, I'm going to go over here. Continue. Oh, it was going to sign me in automatically, but I didn't notice. I clicked too fast. So get yourself signed in. Now you can use them not signed in too, but I tend to sign in because if I ask it something that I want to go back to and have a history, then it'll keep track of my chats. And you've got down in the lower left-hand corner where you see your little avatar or your profile picture, there'll be a gear, and you can open up your settings and look around over here, and you'll see all of your background information. And I don't think there was anything that I needed to make sure that it had turned on under my preferences here. But if you wanted to practice using Perplexity with some of these prompts, just to see if you get a different response using maybe your favorite AI versus Perplexity, it would be a good comparison to see the different results that you might get. And then the last one that we can look at, I'll just check really quick with Gemini. Since that was one of the ones that has been getting a lot of buzz lately because Google just came out with Gemini and Gems, which are little mini apps that you can create or bots that you can create under Gemini. So it's getting a lot of kind of a lot of information lately. So under settings, you've got your Gems manager right here, and you can create little gems. So check out Gemini too to see if you get different responses using different AIs. Okay, so those are some of your LLMs you might want to try for this next activity. We also have our Padlet open. So what I'd like to ask you to do real quick is to think about a time when you have been in the classroom, been in your library, been in your school building, and seen students working with technology in a way where it was an empowering experience for the students. And what did you observe? What were the students doing? And just really quick, either over here in the chat, if that's what's easiest for you, or in the Padlet in this third column, describe what you observed the students doing and what you felt was empowering about that use of technology. Okay, so I'm starting to see some answers come in. So for those of you who might be either listening back in or listening while you're, rather than viewing this in real time, I'm going to read them aloud. We've got first response by Molly. We used some immersive learning through virtual reality to help students visualize the setting of a book. Students were very engaged, asked a lot of questions about the country, and seemed more invested in the novel after the experience. Another response in the Padlet, newcomers using translate images or teachers' messages. We've got another response in the chat. Active is passive use, real world applications, accessibility. Oh, I'm sorry. Active is it's supposed to say active versus passive use, definitely. There are a lot of ways to use technology. We see a lot of ways that are more passive use where students are just responding to something as opposed to active use of technology. Another response in the Padlet, Vera says, years ago, a brilliant student with severe dyslexia used text to speech, speech to text to give him independence. He would have loved to have today's AI tools. Another response in the chat, students gave me descriptions in Spanish and we created a photo with those descriptions. Jody says, students driving their learning and sharing with teachers how the technology benefited them. Awesome responses. Okay, so thinking about those ideas and maybe some that as we continue along, come to you along the way, let's go back to the to your favorite LLM and the presentation. And on slide 5, there is a Google Doc, and we're going to be using this Google Doc throughout the rest of the webinar. And open up that Google Doc, and there is a Let's Ask AI activity that I'd like you to think about. And in this first row, there's a prompt in there that says, you are a national board certified teacher. Okay, now feel free to change the role part however you want to, but I've got an expert role crafted and kind of saved in one of my folders so that I don't have to retype this every single time. I just copy and paste it right in. So my expert roles always starts off with, you are a national board certified teacher, an ISTE certified educator and coach. You're familiar with North Carolina's Portrait of a Graduate. You are an expert in instructional design and pedagogy, the universal design for learning, and generative AI as it applies to K-12 classrooms. So basically all the things, right? You help educators turn classroom moments into powerful, inclusive learning experiences. So that's my standard little, front end loading for my AI. You are all these things. Now, this is what we want it to do, right? I observed, and the blue part is all you. I observed, and then insert your observation that you just chatted about technology and empowerment. So take this moment that you just observed and then explain how this example aligns with universal design for learning. So copy and paste that out. And then if you want to also add the grade level, the classroom that you observed that in, any extra information to that observation, then go ahead and, spruce it up however you want to. So copy that paragraph out of there and paste it into your favorite AI and see what happens. And while you guys are doing that, I am going to do one of my own as well. Okay, so I'm going to go over here and grab my example that I have kind of preloaded for myself and just put it right into my chat. And while I am doing that, if you guys So when I do that, my example that I would like to share with you, and then we're going to take a minute to share in the Padlet, and then also this is a pretty small group, so if people would like to share some of your thoughts in the Padlet about this experience, and then we might take a minute to maybe unmute as well and share how this has turned out. We'll talk about that in a minute too. But my example that I'm sharing is I observe students in a classroom using a school AI chatbot that was set up to ask them questions about what their interests were in, either in school or outside of school, and then lead them through the design thinking process so that they could use materials that the librarian had set up in the library in a little mini makerspace table. So there were straw bees and some other materials sitting around. And so the AI chatbot was set up to be just kind of a quick little design thinking assistant. But the majority of the work was just to let the students creatively solve a problem right there at the table. So the way this aligns with the Universal Design for Learning, according to Claude, is through it gives it aligns with multiple means of engagement because it connects with the students' interests, multiple means of representation, giving personalized guidance, multiple means of action expression with varied paths and process-oriented assessment. So all of these different ways, it just pulls out of just that one little tidbit of observation. So what I'm wondering from you guys is, if you could jump over here to the same column where you had your observations, is when you do that quick little process with prompting AI, what kinds of things popped out about the alignment with UDL by doing that prompt sequence? And you can either type into the Padlet or the chat, or if you would like to unmute and just share some of your thoughts out loud, that would be fine too. So Jody says that students were driving their own learning, sharing with teachers and their technology. I see Vera's typing in the chat. We have Geraldine saying it definitely pulled out the same headings and a lot of the same ideas. So definitely aligned with the main UDL headings. So we know AI knows the UDL framework for sure.
I thought this was really interesting because even though I know a lot of the language around UDL and I understand what like multiple means of action and expression or multiple means of representation, like I understand what that means, but sometimes it takes a lot more brain power to like translate it into what does that actually look like in action. So I love that this teaches you what it looks like. Even when you're familiar with it, it pulls out those specific things. So I'm seeing a lot. It's a lot. I would copy and paste it, but it's a lot of reading. I don't know that it would fit in one Padlet box. The answer, I used Claude and it gave me like an essay.
Exactly. And I think so part of the reason why I love to start this way is that we can see by a really simple observation of something that is working well in a classroom, there's a lot of alignment with UDL. So when UDL's been around for a long time, we're on, revision number 3. So it has changed and evolved over time. But this main idea of these 3 main categories has been around for a while. But when we talk a lot of times about how to implement UDL, a lot of times it feels a little bit overwhelming to, are we going to have to do one more thing? Well, no. When things are working well in the classroom, it's because these are the types of things that are occurring. This is why things are engaging to students. And so if we sort of reverse engineer the experience and say, here's something that's working, where is UDL occurring? Well, it pulls out what's working well. So my next question for you, so we're going to go on to the next one, is to talk about this idea from Kendra Grant and Luis Perez in the book Dive into UDL, which we'll talk about where you can get a copy of that through your ISTE membership. Is there one of my favorite quotes from them is that is this blueprint for ensuring what we do in the classroom is not just good teaching, but good teaching by design. And the reason there's a picture of somebody bowling a strike is that years ago, I attended a training where there were 4 quadrants, and it was about, and the one that sticks out to me is about being consciously competent. That the person, there's some people who are just naturally gifted at doing things, and in this case, they were talking about being good educators. And they just kind of, were good at it. And, but the trick to being good at something all the time and doing it by design is to intentionally do things. So that was this conscious competence. And so I might be able to bowl a strike by accident every once in a while, but the trick to being good at it is to practice and to set that intention, right? So following this UDL framework is to not just be having an engaging experience for some of your students some of the time, but to be able to do that for all of the students all of the time, or at least most of the time. Somebody who also talked about this really well is Todd Rose at Harvard University. And if you've been in the UDL AI or differentiation world for more than a minute, you probably heard about this idea about the end of average or the myth of average. And so I'm not going to play his video, but it's a good resource and you can go back and listen to it. But he talks about this idea that when we teach to the middle, we end up not making very many people in the classroom or in anything, or when we design to the middle, we end up not making very many people actually very happy with the experience. And so there's this myth of the idea that we can hit most people by teaching to the average. And part of the research and the data that we've collected over time, and I think we know this intuitively as educators, is that everybody has a jagged learning profile, right? We may be excellent in oral communication, but then really struggle in reading comprehension or written communication. And so even within a certain subject, we'll have things that we excel at, things that we're medium at, and things that we're not so good at. And so every learner has a jagged learning profile. And this variability, instead of just saying, well, we know that, but we're just too, whatever to be able to deal with it, we have to learn to expect this variability and to celebrate this diversity and then to plan for it. And in the past, it's been pretty overwhelming to be able to do that on a consistent basis. But my hope is that we have the AI tools to be able to help us do that more often than not. So another quote that I love from the CAST website is that UDL is a tool to help us improve and optimize teaching for all people, and that the UDL framework is based on the science of how humans learn, not just students, but how humans actually learn. So it's based on really sound research into how humans learn. So if you haven't seen the UDL framework in more than a minute, then there's a link right here to take you over to the CAST website. They have updated it, so it's a little bit different than it was, I think, about a year ago. So this is the new version of it. They changed the wording a little bit and how they present some of the sections. So I had to relearn a few things when I went back to it. But the main things are still the main things, I think. That was sort of my message to myself. So we have multiple means of engagement, which is, kind of the engaging, students in the why of learning, like why should I even pay attention? Why should I engage with this in the first place? Multiple means of representation, of helping kids figure out how to take this information in, how do they connect with it, and then action expression is how do they give it back? How do they tell you what they know and make sense of this, and then put that all together and synthesize the information and put it back out into the real world. So I want to pause for just a second here and play this video by one of the kind of my go-to people for making sense of things all of the time and putting it into the context of what does it mean for me as a teacher, but then kind of turning it around and really centering it with students. John Spencer does a great job of being student-centered and putting things in terms of student agency. So quick little clip of John Spencer explaining UDL.
In the early 1960s, visionary architect Selwyn Goldsmith designed the initial curb cut or dropped curb to encourage people with limited mobility to have access to city sidewalks. Now, this was part of a larger movement led largely by disability advocates toward universal access in the built environment. This would be done by changing policies, systems, and structures to promote full inclusion. In the last few decades, architects, product developers, and UX designers have embraced this philosophy of universal design. Coined by the architect Ronald Mace, universal design is built on the core belief that we should design environments to be usable by all people without the need for adaptation or specialized design. This inclusive approach allows everyone to benefit from such designs. Hence, caregivers pushing strollers will benefit from curb cuts. Similarly, viewers use closed captioning on videos regardless of their hearing. In other words, when you design for everyone, everyone benefits from the design. Universal design for learning applies the same philosophy of universal design to every aspect of learning, from learning spaces to materials to instruction and assessment to classroom culture and behavior management. Built around cognitive neuroscience, UDL is an inclusive educational framework that seeks to remove barriers while also keeping the learning challenging for all students. This UDL approach includes a paradigm shift from a deficit mindset to neurodiversity, and from singular accommodations to universally accessible scaffolds and support, and from a teacher-centered view to a student-centered approach centered on student agency. In the 1990s, Dr. David Rose and the Center for Applied Special Technology, or CAST, articulated 3 UDL principles. Number 1, multiple means of engagement, which focuses on the affective networks or the why of learning. Number 2, multiple means of representation, which focuses on the recognition network or the what of learning. And number 3, multiple means of action and expression, which focuses on the strategic networks or the how of learning. So what does this actually look like in the classroom? Well, there is no one set prescriptive way of doing UDL, but here are a few ideas. When it comes to the why of learning, teachers can focus on student interests, agency, and motivation. This helps students become self-directed, meaning they are both self-starters and self-managers. And it starts with student choice. This might include choice menus or launching a genius hour, letting students select what they read or figure out what problems they want to solve in math. They can also pursue their questions with a Wonder Day activity or a longer inquiry-based learning project. And this starts with a provocation, which leads students to ask their own questions, engage in research and data gathering, where they then analyze the data and share their findings and insights with others. As educators, we can build interdependency into student collaboration so that every student has a voice in the learning community. Interdependence is that overlap where students work independently, but they still depend on each other. Now, this sense of ownership can help promote student self-regulation. Students can see their progress toward mastery as they set goals, monitor their progress, and reflect on the learning. When it comes to what students learn, we can provide learners with multiple methods for accessing the learning content. This might include using multiple font sizes, closed captioning, text-to-speech technology, or the ability to change speed in audio and video. It's also what happens when we front load vocabulary and provide sentence stems that any students can access. It might also include incorporating graphic organizers or visuals to help process the information, as well as providing slideshows in advance before class begins. When it comes to how students learn, we can provide learners with multiple methods for demonstrating what they are learning. This might include providing flexibility on timing and due dates for assignments and projects, but also incorporating additional think time or more opportunities to practice retrieval during a lesson. We can also provide calendars and checklists, as well as project blueprints that break down the tasks for students. We can provide choices for the methods that they're using to solve problems, or multiple media formats for their finished products. Universal Design for Learning embraces the diversity of all learners so that all students are empowered to become self-directed problem solvers and lifelong learners. Hey, would you do me a favor? If you found this video to be helpful, would you?
Okay, so that I feel like is a great overview of the whole process of UDL and how it really relates to students in the classroom and how we can incorporate it into actual classroom experiences, right? So with that idea in mind, I want us to go back to, and if you were working ahead, then I see you out there, since it's all in one Google Doc. But if you were not and you were being patient, the next activity over here in this doc is to design with your either your same experience that you had, or you choose a new one, but to go down to step 2 in this Google Doc and say, based on the observation that you had, so if you're continuing in the same chat with your AI, and to copy this same prompt in sequence and ask it the next question. So the idea is to say, based on the observation that you shared about how students were empowered through technology, help me design a lesson or learning activity that aligns with UDL, engages a diverse group of learners, and incorporates generative AI as a learning tool, co-creator, or guide. Okay, so here's information about my classroom. So customize it with your grade level, your subject, and a standard or learning goal. Now, over here on the slide deck, I've given you a link to the Office of Teaching and Learning Hub. I don't know how many people know about this yet, but when I found out about it, I was like, what? This is what I've been waiting for like more than a minute. So there's a link right here. If you click on that OTL hub, it'll take you over to this. It's a Canvas page, but it's like a website, right? Where they have put all of the subject areas, little all in one-stop shopping. So if I'm a science teacher, I can click on science, and it will take me over to the science page where I can find my standards right there. No hunting around in 500 million. Now, if you're at a website, if you're at a district where you've got your standards, right where you know where you have them, then definitely go there, right? But if you need to find your ELA standards, your math standards, then this hub is a really super useful resource. Okay, so that is right there on the slide deck if you want to find that link. So the idea here is to take this paragraph right here, customize it with your grade, your subject, and a standard or a learning objective. Just paste it right in there. And then the task for your AI is to please ask me any questions you need to know about my learning environment, because you want to customize it to your classroom, such as classroom setup. And I always tell my AI to ask me questions one at a time, right? Nobody wants to have 10 questions just fired right at them. And then at the end of that Q&A period, it will create you a UDL aligned learning activity. Now, I'm going to tell you, I did this in all of the AIs and I had really, really good results. My preferred results were from Claude with artifacts turned on because it gave me the lesson, but then it also gave me all kinds of extra information in the artifacts. So experiment, see what you get. And so as you start to get results, either jump over to the Padlet and share what you noticed about designing with AI, or put a note or two in the chat. I am going to go over here and grab my example and share with you something that I got with Claude. If I saved my chat. Does anybody have anything that they can share that they got as a result of using that prompt?
Stacy, do you see Marielle drop something in the chat?
Yes,
A link to a doc.
I do. I'll open that up. All right, Marielle. So Marielle, I opened up your Google Doc over here, and it gives a complete lesson plan. What AI did you use?
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. Okay, so it gives you photosynthesis.
But
Gives
before
it,
this, I had to tell the specific because I want to see a lesson plan. After, I did it, and then I requested a second time a lesson plan.
and then it gave you a lesson plan. Okay. And how do you feel about this lesson plan? Do you feel like it is on target for what you asked for? Did you give it a standard or a learning goal?
Also, what I would like to have.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I will ask a little more of games because I teach ESL.
Mm-hmm. So you'd have to go back and forth with it a little bit to get it fine-tuned to what you want?
I did it like twice, and then I got it what I wanted. So like I say, I needed to see these because I only teach 3 students. So I wanted to see something where everybody was going to be able to participate. As I cannot do breakout rooms with 3 students.
Okay. So on this one, if I went through and asked it a bunch, so what I would suggest is try that same prompt with that same information, jump over to Claude and see what it asks, see how it compares in terms of giving you more flexibility for your ESL students. Okay, that'd be interesting to see. Okay, so I'm going to jump over to the next activity on the prompt challenge is to look at challenges that you've observed that make it harder for learners to succeed, especially for students who learn differently. So, a really good example is ESL students who struggle with different barriers like having a difficult time getting started, having a difficult time staying on task. So when this can be the whole variety of barriers that we see in the classroom. So we can share examples in the chat, but in the interest of time, I think let's just jump right over to the Google Doc and take a look at the next prompt. So this is problem solving with your AI. So again, we're still in the same chat, so it still knows that that it's a National Board Certified teacher. So this information doesn't have to be repeated, but if you were starting from scratch, then you would keep this top part of the information. The second part is the problem that you've observed. So we would take this second part of the prompt and paste that in and customize it with the challenge or the barrier that you're observing in class. And barriers can be everything from, like I said, something that is, a reading level, is a failure to follow directions or difficulty with staying on task, all of these different things that are challenges with, different students that you see in class. And then using the UDL framework suggests flexible, inclusive strategies or tools that you can use to address this barrier and support students, and see what what your AI gives you. So try that problem solving. And then the next iteration of that would be if you wanted to go straight to actually incorporating that into a lesson plan or a specific activity, would be to take those, because this as you've seen, if you tried this already, is that this is going to generate a list of a lot of ideas. So it'll be just basically a buffet of things that you could try, that you could use as either a strategy or something that you could pick from. But you could go to the next step, which is to actually incorporate that into a lesson. So you do everything related to your grade, your subject area, and your learning goal or your standard, and then describe the barrier or the learning challenges that you're trying to address in your classroom, and actually go through the process of incorporating that into either a unit or a lesson plan, and then being iterative with it to make sure that you have it as customized as possible for your for your classroom. But because you've inserted this section into the prompt, it is going to be more targeted towards addressing specific issues that you're trying to customize it for in your class. So one of the things that I wanted to talk with you about is this research paper that I came across when I was preparing for this, from Song and several others who were using UDL as their framework for teaching AI literacy to students, and the success they had with using that framework to apply to diverse learners at their middle school AI camp. And what I loved about this paper, and I've shared it with you if you want to kind of dig into the details of it, but they had this really amazing experience with this AI camp, and they shared their framework that incorporates the content area. Now, their content was AI literacy, but we can substitute any content at the core in this center diagram. They have their UDL framework around the outside. So we have all three main areas of UDL, and then how they approached teaching their content and all of the different ways that they applied their teaching strategies and how it aligned with each area of the UDL framework. And what I loved about this was that it was a really good way to see how we teach with problem-based learning, collaborative learning, peer evaluation, teaching AI through unplugged activities, having kids create things, having authentic assessments, having the kids document their project, all of these different things that are types of things that we can do regardless of content in our classrooms in different ways, and then showing how those tangible things, graphic organizers, all that sort of thing, aligned with different elements of the UDL framework. So So skipping over to not AI, but a content area, saying if we would put any content, whether it's ELA or math or art or STEM or whatever it is that you're teaching, putting that content at the center. I updated it a little bit for the new framework because we've updated to 3.0. So I changed the wording around the outside edges a little bit, and then saying, how about if we looked at the ways that we could incorporate some of these different things and have them aligned to teaching any content area? So what would that look like? So I loved this graphic organizer as a way to just sort of visualize how could we incorporate graphics into teaching to the representation portion of UDL? How can we start incorporating project-based learning, keeping things relevant, collaborative learning, and peer and self-evaluation, because that fits into the engagement part of UDL? And then how can we include AI Unplugged is really just hands-on activities, developing artifacts, authentic assessment, and documentation. All of this is part of action expression. So this graphic is just a really nice visualization of how we can start incorporating different types of activities into the UDL framework. So with that idea in mind, where are the AI tools that can help with that? Well, there were too many AI tools to fit into a bubble to fit around this entire graphic, but we have tons of AI tools that are aligned with these activities, right? From quizzes and Diffit that'll help us actually create assessments and artifacts that we can give to students to have them do hands-on learning, create leveled text. To Diffit creates amazing graphic organizers. It's aligned with Edu protocols. So we have all sorts of different AI tools. We have Snorkel and CuriePod that allow kids to engage and get AI feedback in a K-12 appropriate way. So they're interacting with AI. So we have all kinds of different AI tools that are aligned with different elements of the UDL framework. So this is probably not the most accessible way for teachers to look at something, but I thought I'd create an AI toolkit. So if you click on this link, now you're going to notice it's definitely not complete. It's a work in progress, but if you save the link and come back, you'll be able to look at it as it continues to grow. This is a spreadsheet that has the AI tools listed down one side, a short little description of what the features are of that tool, recognizing that these features of these AI tools are definitely changing. I came back to Brisk and had to change its little paragraph because they added podcasting, or not podcasting, but they'll create audio versions of tools that you can give to students now. So this will definitely change. And then in these different columns over here, how the AI tool aligns with the different elements of the UDL framework. So if you're looking for a tool and you need one that is just really strong in the engagement area, you could look at this spreadsheet and get some ideas for things that are going to help either the student-facing side or the teacher-facing side in terms of what AI tools are out there. So before I want to give you a chance to kind of explore that spreadsheet a little bit. And then on this next slide, and I think we have a minute or two to do this, is just get some feedback from you of what you think might be useful about this AI toolkit. Adding more information to it and definitely kind of filling out the columns is one of my goals. But the next steps for that could be creating a way to filter it so you didn't have to just kind of scroll through. It could be there could be a way to add like a UDL planning wizard so that you could just ask it questions and it could give you a grade or content or barrier that you're looking for, and this is the tool. These are the tools that would be most appropriate for that. Or there could even be a student-facing interface where students could say, I really wish that blah blah blah, and what would be a way that I could have a tool that would work for me, that would be a K-12 or a 13 and over appropriate way to do this. So Vicki, yes, definitely. We could probably attach that. We have the registration maybe. So if you could jump over into the Padlet or just type in the chat of what you think would be useful about a resource like this and give suggestions. You could put it in the Padlet, or you could also put it into the feedback form that we're going to drop in just a minute too. The next thing I want to mention really, really quickly is there's this great book that you have access to from now until July, at which point the free ebook will change through your ISTE membership. So when you go into your ISTE membership, and there are directions linked right here on how to do that, if you need that information, you can download Dive into UDL by Kendra and Luis, and it's a great book of giving you just a quick overview on UDL through the context of a swimming race. And it would normally actually cost you money, but because we all have a membership to ISTE, we get that free ebook. So if you need a walkthrough or a guide on how to get your copy, there are directions right here. So, but it's really pretty easy. So just sign into your ISTE membership and do that. And there are more tools and resources for you related to just AI in education. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm just kind of obsessed with Wakelets. So if you click on that, I've got a Wakelet for just about everything related to AI. And they just keep spawning themselves and turning into new ones. But there are a bunch of them here related to AI in education. So I've given you the link to that. And this is the using learning modalities is also linked here. And there's also a link to that research paper if you just kind of want to look into that a little bit more too. And this is the call to action that I put at the end of a lot of my AI webinars. And basically, you are here. How are you helping your students, and how are you using AI in your classrooms to just bring our kids into the 21st century, or not even the 21st century, the AI, the age of AI, right? And before we go, just take a minute to fill out this brief feedback form. It is really brief, and you help us grow by filling this out. The CEU form is also sent to you, but very importantly is what you would like to hear from next regarding these AI webinars. So please take a minute to fill that out. And as always, we really appreciate you spending your time with us this afternoon. And we hope to see you again next Wednesday.